Well, this is one of the big days in the whole recall Jesse Nelson situation. Today at 5 o'clock was the last day. That was the deadline for qualified candidates to replace the vacancy in the recall of Mayor Nelson, if he's indeed recalled, because it's going to be up to the court first, and we'll tell you about that, and then it's going to be up to residents of Lynn Haven, voters of Lynn Haven. The election, the special election's already been set by the chief judge of the 14th Judicial Circuit, and it is scheduled for one day, January 20th at the Lynn Haven Senior Center from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And you're going to only have one section, and that section is going to say, it's going to have two statements. Basically recall Mayor Nelson or keep Mayor Nelson. That's it. So why won't there be a list of qualified candidates? Dave Lowery, Dr. Dave Lowery here, he's a qualified candidate, but the reason is nobody else applied. So if the voters vote to recall Mayor Nelson, then Dr. Lowery is the mayor. There's nobody else. The commission just has to approve it, and that's just a formality. So with all that, Dr. Lowery, retired Lieutenant Colonel, U.S. Air Force, a couple of real PhDs, you'd have been my boss. I was a public affairs officer, and I would have loved to have worked with you. And I've been hearing about people who have worked with you, and you know some people in the community. So have at it. You know the people. Why in the world did you decide to do this?
Well, thank you for having me, Bernie, and thank you to the folks of Panama City and Lynn Haven that are tuning in and live and who will be watching this a little later. I have indeed. I've been here in the community since March of 2013. So I moved down here from Washington, D.C. at the completion of a 5-year life-sucking tour, and back to my home neck of the woods. My family farm's 83 miles northwest of here in northern Walton County. My father and uncle and aunt all still live on the family farm. And I was close to home, worked at Tyndall until August 1st of 2018. I retired 2 months before a little storm came through. You probably never heard of, called Hurricane Michael. Sarcasm intended there. But sure. So the reason I am running, quite simply, is because we have a significant void in leadership in the mayor's office in Lynn Haven. When I started this endeavor, this was the furthest thing from my mind when I retired from the Air Force. But quite frankly, this year alone, kind of had a serendipitous moment back in March of this year. You really shouldn't be able to point to more than one example, but I can give you 3 right off the cuff. Examples of serious voids in leadership and what we have right here in Lynn Haven. So the first one would be back in March. I know you've talked about this multiple times, but Mayor Nelson's ostracized comment times 19. And he basically belittled Commissioner Wark, Jamie Wark, who's a retired Air Force Senior Master Sergeant, 23-year active duty service veteran, honorably discharged, served in harm's way many a times. That was painful to watch. And I remember thinking, what in the world is this guy doing? The hair was standing up on the back of my neck. I had never seen a leader act like that before. It was just like, this is not right. What one would expect from any leader, much less one purporting to be a doctor of leadership, right? So that's the first one. Second one was kind of the 3-ring circus they had in July at Lynn Haven City Hall after now former city manager Vicki Gaynor was fired by a vote of 4-1. That was an absolute hot mess. There's no easy way to say that. And then the third one actually goes back to, I believe it was 2023, when they were in the little temporary digs and the little U-shaped formation for the City Hall commission meetings. And Jody Moore stepped up to talk about James Finch and Margot Anderson. And the mayor said, look, we're not talking about Tallahassee. She said, well, I want to talk about this. This is public commentary. And he directed the chief of police, Ricky Ramey at the time, to escort her off. And she said, you're literally going to infringe upon my First Amendment rights. He said, yes, I am. So all 3 of those were problematic by themselves.
Well, Dr. Lott, let me say one thing about this. I sued the city of Panama City Beach for First Amendment retaliation. And in that process, I learned a whole lot. I learned that you have more First Amendment rights on the street corner outside of a public meeting than you do in a public meeting. However, in some regards, your First Amendment right is even stronger at the podium, but
For
in
public commentary.
right in public commentary. But they do have the ability through case law to narrowly limit three things: time, place, and manner. They can tell you when you can speak, how long you can speak. They can tell you, hey, you can't throw up Hitler signs while you're speaking. Manner, you can't walk around screaming. They can also limit time, place, where you're going to stand, where you got to stand when you make your public comments. But what they cannot do is, if they give you the opportunity and you meet those three things that the courts have said they can limit, they cannot shut down your content just because they don't like it. So it sure was a First Amendment violation.
It was, and the whole process has just been kind of painful. Particularly with the current mayor, he had a interesting dynamic in terms of from the center dais seat, particularly with Jamie Warwick on his right and Sam Peebles on his left, both former Air Force NCOs, non-commissioned officers. Jamie has 23 years of service. Sam, I believe, has 15 or 16 years of service in total. He's a Florida active duty guy for a few years, and then a Florida Air National Guardsman for many years. Air Force, or all U.S. military NCOs, are hardwired, trained from the first day of basic training to respect your commander. If you don't respect the man or woman in the seat, you still respect the position. You still give them a due courtesy and respect. And it was very painful to see that these guys were doing their very best to give the current incumbent mayor the due respect of the position, with the pointing and the jeering and the all of the taunting. It's like, this is not what a mayor should be doing, particularly in the system of government that Lynn Haven has, which is a weak mayor commission form, where the mayor is effectively the chairperson of a 5-member commission. Okay. The true executive function, when you think of a mayor, you typically think of like a strong executive, a local level governor or president. But in Lynn Haven's form of government, that's not necessarily the case. And sorry if I get to sound like a public administration professor here, but I actually am. The mayor of Lynn Haven is actually part cheerleader. It's part strategist, it's part communicator, and it's part coach. The coach part is you have to work with the other 4 commissioners. You are 1/5, 20% of the commission. You're not even a majority. You don't have an executive veto or anything like that. You are literally the designated lead agent. There are some mayoral ceremonial functions that you have, like cutting ribbons at, ceremonies and signing proclamations and stuff. But other than that, you are one of 5 commissioners. It is in your best interest. It's in the city's best interest for you to form a collaborative, professional, team-oriented approach with the other commissioners, as well as the professional staff that supports you. That's just a no-brainer. What has gone on in Lynn Haven for the last few years is, I believe, an active and deliberate attempt to basically segregate and block and tackle the commissioning from actually working as a team, keep them segregated, keep them broken up. And if you do that, the former city manager, Vicki Gaynor, actually had the gray area maximum leverage and flexibility to do whatever the heck she wanted when she wanted, right? And that's really what happened. So what we have now is you kind of reap what you sow. There are significant personnel issues. There are significant resourcing and budgetary issues that need to be addressed. Our police force, for example, they're literally missing 1/3 of their authorized force strength. They can barely fully man shifts, and they've had to pull all their specialists off and put them on regular duty. I got that directly from the acting chief, Steve Infinger himself. They're all pulling patrols, even him as the chief. He's pulling patrol just like a regular beat cop as well. That's what they're doing. They're authorized 35. I think they have 23. So that's the manning issue, right? So there are a lot of issues in Lynn Haven that really needs a lot of professional TLC and attention. Sadly, I'm not sure we're going to get there with the current guy.
Yeah. All right. I'll tell you what I want to do. I want to go through it. And I know you brought some stuff because I want to introduce you more to everybody. Because again, here's the situation. Nobody else is a qualified candidate to fill the vacancy in the recall of Mayor Nelson, provided the court doesn't strike it down and provided that the Lynn Haven voters on January 20th say a majority say recall Mayor Nelson. If so, Dr. Lowery is going to be the next mayor. And so I've got some questions. You know, my big thing, we can disagree on policy, but please, transparency. And as Commissioner Tinder says often, listen to the people. I want to thank sponsors. Come back and dig deeper into Dr. Dave Lowery.
Strong, effective leadership. 3 words that could mean the difference between prison and your freedom. I'm Al Saleen, your Panama City Beach lawyer. 850-215-0628.
You want to look good? You want to feel good? Little John's Big and Tall is where it's at. Right across the street from Sky's Pizza Pie, 5700 North Davis Highway. You can find out more online at littlejohnsbigandtall.com. He's also a member of the iTex trading community, where your iTex dollars are welcome. Don't let back pain and neck pain get you down. Find relief at Brown Chiropractic Center on St. Andrews Boulevard in Panama City. Dr. Sherry Brown helps people heal naturally with chiropractic adjustments and deep tissue massage. Call 769-3777.
All right. So if the court doesn't strike down the recall, and if the voters vote to recall Mayor Nelson, Dr. Lowery will be the next mayor for the remainder of the term in Lynn Haven. He just outlined some of the problems, but let's learn a little bit more about you.
Sure.
Who are you? Are you some interloper into Florida? Dr. Lowery said, are you going to ambush me? Here it is. Dave, I think we got you.
Oh, gosh.
Tell us about how you grew up.
So carpetbagger, I am not. I'm actually a proud 8th generation Floridian. So in fact, if you would jump up to the slides, you know, what professor or former military guy is not complete for a presentation without at least a few PowerPoint slides, right? So we'll start right there at the bottom. So what you have here, ladies and gentlemen, is a map of West Florida back in 1806. And above it, you can actually see southern Alabama and southwestern Georgia. If you look up, and I don't know if it'll, you know, I'm going to use the little mouse here. They can see that, right?
No.
Okay. So if you look at the blue line kind of on the right-hand side of the picture, start going up, you'll see 2 blue lines. The lower line says Lower Eufaula. And above that, you see another town, Coweta. So this is modern-day Alabama. But this is where my 6th great-grandfather and his daughter, my 5th great-grandmother, this is where they lived. They were Muskogee Creek. Well, they were Muskogee. That's the traditional native name for the indigenous people of that particular area, Alabama, Georgia, northern or Florida. But Coweta is where my 6th great-grandfather, William McIntosh, or Tuskegee in Muskogee, was born and raised. So he was a brigadier general in the U.S. militia. He was actually one of the very first Native American generals. He was actually field commissioned as a 1-star general brigadier by then Major General Andrew Jackson, future president of the United States. They fought together, Battle of Horseshoe Bend in March of 1814, and worked together several times for the next several years. And General Jackson later promoted him to brigadier general. So he was actually killed in April of 1825 for supporting a treaty where he basically recognized, and the Creek Confederation at the time, they had a major split. Long story short, half the folks were like, look, we can't compete with the white European settlers here. They have guns. They kill 200 of our warriors. It takes us 20 years to grow them back. If we kill 200 of their warriors, they can bring in more from the other colonies and they'll be here in a month, right? So we can't keep up with them. They are going to run us over. It's a matter of we either live to fight another day and we move to modern day Oklahoma, then Indian territory, or we stay and they kill us and our bones are told into the soil with that of our ancestors. And so there was a major split in the Creek Nation at the time. Either you go to Oklahoma or you stay and you stand your ground. The ones that went voluntarily in the early waves, if you had 100 acres in Georgia, Alabama, you got 100 acres in Oklahoma, northeastern Oklahoma. If you didn't, you were the ones that refused to do that. You became a Trail of Tears. And they were drugged forcibly a few years later. Well, General McIntosh's pretty much his entire family moved to Oklahoma, his widow, his brother, all of his children except one. And if you'll go back to that slide. So his second oldest daughter, Catherine Kate McIntosh Cousins, my fifth great grandmother. She and her husband, Billy Cousins, they moved to Eufaula. It was what is now Barber County, Alabama. That's where his people were from. Eufaula was the southernmost Muskogee tribal town on the Chattahoochee River. And so if you look at that lower line, that is where they lived until September of 1841. So by then, all the voluntary folks had already moved to Oklahoma, and the rest of the natives were getting forced out. And Eufaula was one of the last pockets of natives left. There was them. There was also Hickory Ground near Wetumpka, Alabama. So as the federal troops came in and forced them out and forced them to Oklahoma, there was basically about a week period where you could pack your wagons and get the heck out of Dodge. And that's actually what my ancestors did. Go back one more time. So they left Lower Eufaula, and then you see where it says West Florida. If you look between the I and the D in Florida, you see a little blue dot there, right south of the Alabama-Florida state line. That's actually where they ended up. They actually left. They headed south. There was a east-west road that ran across West Florida that headed to Pensacola and on down to Mobile and then to New Orleans before it went up to go to Oklahoma. They were actually planning to go connect with family. Everyone else had already gone out, but they only made it to right there, what is now Laurel Hill, Florida. It was called Amarant at the time. It was a small little remote trading post. Florida was literally American territory at the time. It wasn't even an American state yet. They got here about 3.5 years before statehood. Statehood happened March 3rd, 1845. They got right there to where that little blue dot is, and a broken wagon wheel delayed them in October of 1841. They decided to winter over there and never left. So my ancestors have literally been here 3.5 years longer than this has been a state, 200 years ago. So there's that. And then if you go to the next one, this is just another look at exactly where they're at. You can see on the right-hand side, the 1838 Western Florida Panhandle map. If you go up, you see the blue line where Amarant is and where it is relative. And look, there's no Bay County. What is now Bay County was part of Washington County. There was also no Okaloosa County. Okaloosa County was carved out of the eastern side of Escambia County and the western side of Walton County back in the early 1900s. So it was a big old territory at the time, and that's where my folks settled. I grew up right close to there, and that was home. So flash forward many generations, and here we are. A couple more. So this right here on the left, the guy with the plume in his hat, we didn't have war bonnets or feathers.
Do they have those at Little John's Big and Tall? I'll wear that at the next meeting, Dave.
We'll have to get you one. I know we can get you a replica. But so Chief McIntosh there, he was the one-star general I was telling you about. Well, his daughter, that's her grave right there. It's in Mossy Head, just west of Defuniak Springs in Walton County. She and her husband and many generations since, all the way down to my grandmother's generation, are all buried in the small little family cemetery there called Crowder Chapel. What you have, the guy up there, the strapping older man, is Chief McIntosh's eldest son. That's Chili McIntosh. He was actually a militia colonel at one point himself. My fifth great grandmother, Kate, she died at the age of 39. She had 2 teenage daughters, but then she got pregnant with an baby at 39. She died shortly after giving birth to him. And then, unfortunately, the little boy, Jack, he actually died at 3 or 4 years old. So they lost them both. But the 2 daughters and her husband, Billy, survived. Between the 2 daughters, they had 17 children with their husbands. The young lady there at the bottom, I don't have a picture of my fifth great grandmother, Kate. That is Chili's daughter, Mildred. So she was Kate's full-blooded niece, but everyone credited Mildred was supposed to be a spitting image of her father's sister. So that is the closest I have to what my fifth great grandmother looked like, was her niece, who was supposed to be her doppelganger. So there you go. Go to the next one. A couple more family photos real quick. Flash forward to the 1910s, 1920s. That darker skinned, chiseled face guy sitting there with the dog, the wife, and the kids. That is my great-great-grandfather, Rob Jones. He was actually a Walton County commissioner back in the 1920s and 30s. And you can see on the right-hand side there, the R.L. Jones with the blue arrow and the line. That plaque is actually at the front door of the Walton County Courthouse. Many, many times when I was a child, my grandmother would take us there and show us that. That was her grandfather. She was extremely proud of that. So I show that here to show y'all my roots in Walton County are extremely deep, and it's just who I am. So I'm local, but I'm not too local. I wasn't born and raised in Bay County, but right next door in Walton County. So,
And then, so then when did you decide to join the military? And tell us what you did when you were in the military and how you ended up back here.
sure. So actually, I have a couple more pictures we can jump to. We'll do the pictures up front, guys, if you'll bear with us. So this is me and my family here. The picture on the left, we're at Lowery family 1985. I'm the goofy guy in the back there. So my dad right there, and my mom's Creek Indian, Muskogee Creek. You can tell with a darker complexion. A lot of folks think she's Spanish or Italian, but she's actually Creek. Me in the back, middle brother.
Oh, I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. I have a question. She's Creek Indian. Okay. So I'm riding with Miss Sarah Moon not too long ago through Washington County. And I said, God willing and the creek don't rise. And of course, the brains behind the outfit, Miss Sarah Moon, says, do you even know what that means? And I said, if I hope it doesn't rain and flood. She says, nope. So yeah, tell us about this before you move on. God willing and the creek don't rise. This is exciting.
So that actually goes back to colonial times in Georgia and South Carolina. So if you look at a map of the United States back 1775, 1776, Georgia, they had a very small little piece of the map around Augusta, Georgia, and the rest of Georgia, and Savannah. Everything else to the west was basically creek country, as they called it, right? So as more and more European settlers came in, they needed more land, the game got scarcer. The two various cultures, there was a lot of friction there, right? And the natives were continually pushed west. And so there would be rebellions as the settlers would move into what was traditionally and agreed upon via treaties as creek lands. It's like, okay, you go to this side of the river, we have everything on the other side of the river. And then all of a sudden you have your settlers on the other side of the river, right? And now they're setting up, and they're taking their deer and all of that, their game, and so it'd be problematic. And so good Lord willing, i.e. good weather, good health, and the creek don't rise, i.e. they don't come and burn your house down or force you back off of their lands, right? It's kind of like Goldilocks and the Three Bears a little bit, I guess you could say, right?
Now we know what that saying means, because I bet most people just don't know. I didn't know.
Yep.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine. Let's go back. So real quick, this is my family. So I'm the oldest of three boys. And then if you look at the other photo there, that's taken in December of 2005. That's my great grandmother in the red there in the front center, her daughter behind me in kind of the blue gray, her son, my father, and then me and my three children. So my great grandmother and grandmother actually helped raise me. They were very significant, positive influences in my life. I wish everyone had an amazing grandmother, grandfather type person in their life. I was lucky to have two. But there were 5 generations in my family. And when my great grandmother, their little granny, as we called her, because she was all of like 4'8" on a good day, she lived long enough to see her grandsons. She had 2 of them, grandsons become grandfathers 7 times over. Can you imagine living that long? And what she saw from covered wagons to Man on the Moon and internet and all of that was just an incredible lifetime.
In 2000, was it, let's think when this would have been, probably around 1998. I delivered medical equipment to people who had like total knee replacements in Southern California. And I was helping a older lady. She was probably 80. And I asked her, I was at her house helping her with this stuff. And I said, what is the most important or life-changing invention of your lifetime? And I thought she was going to say air conditioning or computers. Do you know, she said washing machines. She said, by far, washing machines. She says, you wouldn't believe the amount of work. It was an all day, very hard work to wash clothes. Now you just throw them in, throw them out. And some people still say it's too hard. That's what she said.
Love it. Go to the next one, will you?
Yep.
So a couple more pictures for you. No, not that one. The next one.
Sorry.
They got out of sequence. Yep. Okay. So a couple more. So that's me, top left. I think that's 3rd grade. Bottom left, that's my senior year portrait cadet in Army ROTC at the time. And then that's the special lady in my life, Sarah. She's been with me since high school. Met her, fell in love with her, never could imagine my life without her. So here we are. In February, we'll be together 30 years. That's us in the top center going to prom. You can see us leaving. Her father, my now father-in-law, took that picture of us in my 95 Geo Tracker, rolling out, going to prom. That's a blast from the past, is it not? And that on the right is our actual engagement photo. So we got married at 19. We were both college students. We both worked. We had a shoestring budget. And I recently wrote about this, and we can talk about it a little bit more. But we fell in love. We wanted to get married, and we got us a little apartment off base. We still worked full time. We went to school full time, and that really taught us to live within our means. And even now, 30 years later, we still do. I drive a 2004 Chevy pickup truck with 167,000 miles on it. She drives a 2005 minivan. I call it a Walmart assault vehicle, a WAV, with 180,000 miles on it. We're definitely not trying to keep up with the Joneses, but we got that mindset early on, and we still carry that on. We taught our kids that, and I believe that's also real important. Even in public service, you live within your means. You cannot continually overspend and then wonder why you have money problems, right? Go to the next one. So you asked me about my military, so I wanted to show you guys this. So we'll kind of start in the top left corner, and we kind of work our way around. That's me standing in front of Air Force One back at Hickam Air Force Base. That was 2007. That was George W. Bush's second term. Really cool experience to get to go on Air Force One and do some of that. Got to shake hands with W back in the day. Bottom left, one of the proudest things I ever did in the military. I was a Joint Task Force Deputy Commander. That's me and Lieutenant Colonel Dave Kashiamura, who was the commander of that task force. It was a humanitarian task force after a big earthquake, 8.3 mag earthquake and 46-foot tsunami off the coast of Tutuila, the main island of American Samoa, American territory out in the South Pacific. And we were the first government responders in to help after. They lost 200 people across the Samoan Islands, 5,000 injured, 10,000 homeless out of a population of 50,000. Pretty significant. And that's us standing with the governor of American Samoa with a flag that he signed for us for the task force. Bottom center, that's me with some of my crew members, team members at Kunsan Air Base in South Korea. They're on the Yellow Sea. Don't know if you ever got a chance to go there. Very, very interesting place. Bottom right is me taking command of the 293rd Combat Communications Squadron out on a Navy base. You can actually see the Navy guys with their backs to the cameras there in between me and my group commander and the camera taker. We were the only Air Force unit on a Navy base. So working, flying, living with the Navy was pretty interesting as well. I learned to speak Navy and call people shipmates. And then I went from there back to the Pentagon and called the floor a deck. I called the bathroom the head. You know, I had all the Navy vernacular. And my Air Force brothers were looking at me going, "What's wrong with you?" And then up top right corner, that was my last formal photo taken at Tyndall Air Force Base. That was in October, November of 2016. And then I retired in 2018. And last, top center, that's my family, my wife, Sarah, and I. Y'all saw her in earlier photos, and our 3 children. My son, Jackson, who is a male version of his mom with her father's build. And then our 2 daughters. The oldest one is a female mini-me, and the other is an odd mixture of my mother and my wife crammed together. So, but 3 great kids. And Congressman Dunn, he presented me with a retirement flag. He presided over my retirement ceremony. That was a flag that got flown over the Capitol that I have. That was pretty cool. So there's that. And then I've got a philosophy, kind of leadership philosophy slide and what I want to do.
Okay, so now we can move into, and I know, let's see, I know people are going to want to know, you know, as mayor, you know, it's not a strong mayor city. So you're going to need at least 2 people voting along with you. And I'm sure you want to have a more cohesive group. And also, Dave, I'm confident that I remember being very frustrated last year when I would watch Mayor Nelson tell everybody we're a united front. Well, that made me feel like us versus them. Really, if and it was Jamie Work at the time saying, wait a minute, I disagree, but I'm still a teammate of everybody, but I represent those people. And those people don't agree with us right now. So how do you work that fine line? I mean, it's not us versus them. And I'm confident that that will go away when you are the chairman of that board, the mayor of that board. And how do you get consensus to do what we're about to talk about?
That is an amazing segue. If you would click on that next slide. So what I'm going to share here with y'all, ladies and gentlemen, is so this one slide, this is my leadership philosophy in a nutshell. I presented this. I had the privilege of leading 3 Air Force units, squadrons is what we call them in the Air Force, battalions for Army and Marine Corps folks. But I got to lead 3 units. And at the very first commander's call that I had when I stepped in, I literally presented this one slide. Okay. And what I was doing was telling them who I was, what they could expect from me, and what I was going to be expecting from them. So to answer your question first, let's go back to core values, who you are, how you function, how you represent, how you're hardwired, how you're going to prioritize working with, collaborating, building a team, reaching consensus, and moving forward. You turned it off too fast. Yeah, okay. Real quick. I won't read all this to you, but if you take a look, the core values are integrity first, service before self, and excellence in all you do. For those of you that aren't Air Force going, what the heck are the core values? If you live by that, you live in a very black and white world. I realize life's got a lot of shades of gray. But when you start getting on shades, start playing with shades of gray with your core values, with your professionalism, with, well, I'm going to do it this way with these guys, but these guys are my boys, so I'm going to do something different over here. No. There's consistency, there's right, and there's wrong, right? Golden rule. I cannot overstate golden rule big enough. Treat people the way you want to be treated. Think about your mentors. Think about the people you respect the most in life. There had to have been a coach, a teacher, a pastor, somebody who you just thought the absolute world of. Well, why did you think them? Why did you think they were the absolute bum diggity, right? Whoever, whatever that was, think about those attributes. How can you encapsulate those? How can you emulate those? How can you give that same level of goodness to others around you? Communication, trust, those are huge. Empowerment. Thank yous go a long way. I've never been one just for the status quo. I've always, if anything worth doing is worth doing right the first time. And I think that's one reason Lynn Haven has driven me so crazy in terms of the organizational dumpster fire we really have right now. First rule of leadership in my book is you grow future leaders and you leave an organization better than you found it. Okay. My goal is to come in to Lynn Haven, even if I'm only in for a 15-month term. I, by golly, want to leave that place leap years better than they are now. I want to get our personnel challenges under control. I want to get our spending under control. I want to get our organizational books. We call them unit manpower documents or UMDs in the Air Force, but the actual payrolls. Before Hurricane Michael, we had about 170 folks full-time on the city payroll. Now they have between 211 and 220, depending on how you count. I know it's 211 full-time, and then they have about 9 or 10 part-time. So 220 employees. That's a lot of grade creep, or mission creep, right? Do we have the right number of people? Do we have too many? Do we have too few? If we have too few or too many, where are the biggest needs, right? Where can we free up some of those resources and maybe, I don't know, support our cops better, our first responders, our firefighters, our paramedics, right? What are the most important things to do for our city? What are our critical needs, right? And I just spoke about this last night, we are, as the local municipal level government, we are the closest to the citizens. If your toilets don't work, if your trash ain't getting picked up, your power's not working, if you call for 911 and the cops or the paramedics don't show up, you got problems, right? Those are the things we do. We are a utility city. We need to do utilities well. We need to do our emergency services well. That is our core priority and commitment to the citizens. And anything else is window dressing once you get past that. But you got to do what you're supposed to do, your core mission, to the very best of your ability, plain and simple. And then it just also key leadership traits, what I'm looking for. I'm not demanding loyalty to me. There is no Dave Lowery, the ego. I already have plenty of titles. I have a shadow box full of medals hanging on my wall at home. I am not running for mayor to be a figurehead or for a title. And it's certainly not for the pay. It's a little less than $20,000 a year for about $300,000 worth of headaches. But you need good people willing to step up and serve their community. We need more honorable servant leaders of all shapes, sizes, colors, and creeds, right? If you're a good person, if you treat other people with golden rule, with courtesy and respect, and you're, hey, we may disagree, we may see politics completely different, but you know what? We've got this drainage issue, or we've got this school traffic issue, or we've got this public health issue where we can work together as neighbors and we can do good for our common community, for my kids, for your kids, for the next door neighbor's kids, for everybody. Those are the kind of things that bond us, that unite us, right? Instead of focusing on our differences, let's focus on the things that matter in our community that we can actually be a part of. So that's what I'm looking for. And that kind of goes into your team builder approach. The things that make my skin crawl are those showstopper traits there: lack of integrity, unprofessional behavior, the do as I say, not as I do leaders, right? I know you've seen some of those before. Inability to ask for help, or an inability to work with others, right? Don't tell us how we can't do it unless it's illegal. Help me figure out the best way to do what we can within our time limited constraints, LIMFACs.
Well, you've got some lawyers the city hires. They'll tell you how to do what's illegal. So you got those folks around, Dave, in case you need them. Oh, Amy, I'm just half joking.
Yeah. Let me just say that if the citizens of Lynn Haven are willing to give me their vote of confidence and send Mayor Nelson into an early retirement, there are a lot of things I really want to take a hard look at. And we're going to talk about some of those here in just a couple of minutes. But we really, really need to kind of look at some of the modus operandi, we will, if you will, for our city. There are a lot of things we could do a lot better. And we have some very risk-averse folks advising us that are much more focused on, how would you say, covering all of their bases instead of doing the right thing. And so I guess that's the easiest way to put it. There is a fine balance. Obviously, their interests are for the best of the city as well, but they take a very, very different approach than I would a lot of times. Is it the right thing to do? Is it the honorable thing to do? Is it the legal thing to do? What can we do, right? That's when you get together and you have the public discussion. Okay, here's the data. Here are the issues. Here's what we can do. Let's discuss this as a commission, as a community, the folks that come in and get involved and get engaged. We have a fair number of those. We have some great folks, the Ryan Scrays and the Corey Langfords that come in week after week and, deeply engage. They volunteer on these committees. They come in, they share. And I mean, they're great experts in their own area, and they come in and they give their support and, like contracting management and things like that. They literally share common sense, right? They do it because of their love of the city, not because they're getting anything out of it. That volunteerism is what we need to leverage. So anyway, there's a lot that needs to be changed. So it is kind of what's the closest skater to the boat, and what have we got to do next, right?
Right.
But let's jump to the next slide there.
The final slide.
My final slide. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is a key takeaway here I want to share with all of y'all. If I'm elected to replace Mayor Nelson on the 20th of January, I'll likely take office on January 22nd, 2 days later. Nina Ward in the Supervisor of Elections office, her team will have all of the provisional ballots and all of the absentees, the late arriving that were postmarked, all of that done. They'll have that buttoned up. They will submit the final results on the 22nd to the Lynn Haven City Commission. As soon as they accept it, if Mayor Nelson gets the better vote, and keep Mayor Nelson, well, then nothing changes.
Right.
If more people say Mayor Nelson needs to be recalled, then I'm sworn in as mayor. And it's kind of a unique situation because I'm running unopposed. There was no one else that qualified as of 5 p.m. today. So what that means is there won't be a part two.
Right.
Let's say, for example, you were running also, right? I know you're not a Lynn Haven citizen, but let's say you and I were the two running for this, right? So the ballot that the Lynn Haven's voters will get on January 20th or earlier, if you're an early voter or absentee voter, would say question number 1, and it's 2 very specific statements. Shall Jesse Nelson be recalled as Lynn Haven mayor? Or Jesse Nelson shall not be recalled as Lynn Haven mayor. And you mark one or the other. You pick one. You can't do both. If you and I were both competing, to replace him,
Right.
then the second part of that ballot would say, if Mayor Nelson or Jesse Nelson is recalled, who do you vote for to replace
To fill the
him?
vacancy.
Right.
Yep.
And there would be my name in an oval, and there would be your name in an oval, right? But as Nina Ward explained to me, if you're the only one, you're running unopposed. So that you're done.
Yeah.
Which is kind of weird because you would think your name would be on the ballot, but like she said, nope. And she used herself as an example. When she ran, she was appointed to replace Mark Anderson, her old boss, the Navy SEAL that was supervisor of election for years. But when it came time for her to run, no one else ran against her. No one else filed to run against her. So she did not meet a ballot. She, didn't go up like a normal person in a contested election. She got it, unopposed. And Florida statute is very clear that if you're running unopposed, you don't show up on the ballot.
Right. Yep. So where are we on here?
So jump back on that. So here, ladies and gentlemen, are kind of my 15-month objectives. The first and most important thing, and I know you don't care a thing about transparency and accountability, but
I'm so happy that's number one up there.
I really do believe this. A problem in Lynn Haven is we have so many good people. I really have a lot of respect for all four commissioners that are on the commission. Pat Perno's a local businessman. Sam Peebles is an Air Force and Florida Air National Guard veteran. He's a Navy civilian, GS-13 type guy working in cybersecurity. You've got Jamie Warwick, who is a retired Air Force Senior Master Sergeant E8 type, who still a contractor type folks supporting the DOD. And then you have Judy Tender, who I absolutely love. She's like my favorite honorary aunt. She's just the sweetest, most thoughtful lady. She means what she says what she means, and she shoots straight.
And she's a businesswoman who provides food that everybody loves. And
yep,
fantastic.
She has the best chicken and dumplings around. And I can say that because my grandmother's passed away now. My grandmother used to have the best chicken and dumplings. But short of my grandmother, Judy has it hands down. So I love to go get some of those with her. But so we have a good 4-person commission. I have no doubt if I replace the current mayor in the center seat, that we can actually build a team. I would actually like to go at least once a month. I'd like to sit down and break bread with the other commissioners. I would like us to be on good, friendly terms, not this kind of adversarial, broken, barely talking kind of stuff. And mainly that's the result of the center seat. That's not because of the other 4.
So that's tricky. I know the county commissioners do that and get criticized because of it, because of the Sunshine Law concerns.
Sure.
People see that and we wonder, are you guys talking about things that you might vote on? So
well, first
there might be team building things you can do within the, that don't cause those concerns.
Maybe not. And here's the other thing. You can also have outside folks there with you. I mean, you could have Chris Lightfoot there. You could have a couple of members of the public there as well. There's nothing that says in the Sunshine Law that commissioners can't get together for a Christmas party or for a birthday party or, whatever, or even a lunch once a month. If it's public, if it's known, and you show up and you break bread, it's going to be one thing if you and I are talking about how's your wife doing since her surgery or how my grandma's doing since her stroke. And we're talking about sports teams and what we're going to do for Christmas. Those things are very, very different than policies and things that are coming up for votes, right? But I really do feel like we need to get some of that personal team building back. How do you have a team of folks if you can't communicate, you can't visit, you can't break bread, at least have a soda together, right?
Well, I guess here's a similar thing. You and I were both officers, and Jamie and Sam enlisted guys. Even though they both knew more than I did when they were in the military, I, being an officer, wasn't allowed to go to their homes or go to parties with just them, there was a line. I mean, we could do things, obviously, but there was a line we couldn't cross. I guess it's sort of similar. What did they call it again? Fraternization. I couldn't fraternize with enlisted people, but there were times that we found ourselves in situations and it wasn't quite the same, but there is a little bit of a concern.
Yeah, but not so much as you would think, especially when you're retired. And case in point, when I was a commander, I would have female troops give birth to a baby, or I had a male troop whose wife gave birth to a baby. My wife and I would literally call and coordinate ahead of time and go visit them, right? We would take them a baby present. We would get to hold the baby, we'd visit with them for a little while, and then we would leave. We weren't trying to hang out and drink with them or anything like that, right? But there are certain times, or if they have a death in the family, you can go pay your respects, a wedding, things like that. I participated with a lot of those. In fact, 2 of my 3 commands were actually in Hawaii. And the very first time I got invited to a baby's first luau, that is a huge thing in Hawaiian culture. They were shocked when I showed up. And I stayed, I visited, as they say out there, we talk story, or what you'd say here in the South, we shot the brie, shot the bull. And after that, every single person in my unit, that was having a baby's first luau, I got invited. And so when you go and you become one of the team, right? You pay courtesy, you pay respect, golden rule, treat people the way you want to be treated.
I'll say this, Dave. I have a philosophy, and I really think this is so important. I thought about for a long time what people really want, and I've come up with a little quote, and it's this: people want to be heard even more than they want to be right. And if you let that really sink in and think about it, you'll start to see what I'm saying. Chesterton once wrote that people quarrel because we don't know how to argue, in the classical sense. So I have I always think everybody wants to be somebody. You see somebody with all the bumper stickers on the car, they want to be seen. They want to be a reason why. And right now at City Hall, the employee, look at Kiki, when she had that presentation, she just wanted to be heard. Finally, after 2 years of having it, stuffed in, she just wanted to be heard. So I think as we're talking about improving the morale, making people feel valued because they are, that whole idea of people wanting to be heard, not just citizens, but also the employees. I think the employees want to be heard.
Well, and you hit on something there. And this kind of goes back to the teamwork we were talking about before. We really have to build a team, not only among the 5 commissioners, but also with the city manager, the police chief, the fire chief, the other key. There's 15 departments in Lynn Haven, right? All of those department heads and deputy department heads, who are a heartbeat away from being the department head, right? Everybody has to be on the same page. If you're rowing together, the Hawaiians like to use the analogy of a Hawaiian canoe, or say a rowboat. If you have a 30-person rowboat and half the people are rowing one way out of sequence and the other half, you're not doing much. You're frustrating. You're using a lot of energy and you're not doing hardly anything, right? One big wave comes, y'all get knocked off.
That's like me cleaning the office.
So, interesting thing, as I have talked to current and former Lynn Haven city employees, there is an incredible amount of, how do I say this in a polite way? There's a lot of professional hurt and angst that still exists because of former police chief Ricky Ramey and former city manager Vicky Gaynor. And the things that I have heard, Vicky had a nickname that a lot of people called her, and that was the Queen Bee, right? And I don't mean the BEE that delivers honey, right? She was pretty ruthless. I have heard so many folks talk about how she would call them into her office, and the first thing she'd do is threaten to fire them, completely off at the knees. One individual who worked at the sewage plant talked about he ran into one of the commissioners at the grocery store, and the commissioner recognized him and said, "Oh, how's it going down in your shop?" He said, "Well, not good, sir." He goes, "Well, why?" And he goes, "Well, we're down a couple of people, and the ones of us that are left, we're having to pull double duty and we're just getting burned out." And so he goes, "I'll have to ask about that." Well, the next day he went in and talked to Vicky about it. Said, "Well, what's going on with the sewage plant?" Next thing this particular employee got called to report to Vicky's office. He said he didn't even step in the door and she started screaming at him, "Give me one damn good reason I shouldn't fire you." Paraphrasing.
Wow.
And if you ever talk to your elected official again, heaven forbid, you won't have a job anymore. And when you hear people talk about that and they say that was pretty consistent, she ruled the roost. There was no discussion. There was no debate. It was my way or the highway. You can only do that for so long. There were so many city employees literally scared to do more than flush the toilet in the bathroom without her explicit concurrence and approval, right? As I've talked to some of the department head, more of the senior leader folks, they concur that there was a lot of micromanagement going on. So now that she has been removed from the equation, there's kind of a decompression of sorts, right? But now these folks are learning how to actually lead and do what they were supposed to be doing all along as leaders. Even as a public affairs officer, 35 Papa, if you are running the public affairs office, the wing commander, the vice wing commander is not coming down and telling you how to do your job. They may tell you, Bernie, I need your help with this and this. Go make it happen. They're not micromanaging you.
Right.
You know, they expect you to be a professional, know your stuff, and go take care of it.
Yeah.
What we would call a fire and forget weapon system, right? So there's a lot of dynamics going on with that. Plus, with Ricky Ramey, kind of the same thing. After his newbies incident, they had 8 police officers leave in protest from that.
Wow.
8.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, and another problem with that is Lynn Haven is not even fully competitive with the other municipalities now. Panama City Beach, for example, just redid their police pay scales, and they're paying more for the same job. So you can be a beat cop guy in Lynn Haven for, I don't know, $30,000 a year, or you can do the same beat cop job in Panama City. I'm just throwing numbers out here, but for 38 or 42,000. Well, unless you're from Lynn Haven and you just want to be there until you go under the dirt, why wouldn't you make the trek over to the beach, right? So there's a lot of those kind of things as well. So, and then when you get kind of a really bad do as I say, not as I do leader, and knowing no one else would be held to that same lax standard that he was, people voted with their feet. Wow. So we need new leadership. We need straight talking, as I call them, cigar chomping John or Jane Wayne.
Hey, can I get an application? I got half of it.
There you go. So we need folks that are going to shoot straight, practice what they preach, and hold everyone to the same fair black and white standard. All right. So going on down, there's a key thing also here with separation of powers. So one thing that was particularly problematic from an organizational perspective is Vicki Gaynor basically dual-hatted herself as the city clerk. There are key functions in the city charter that certain powers, responsibilities are with the city clerk. It was intended to be more of an authentication with the city manager. Just like if you think about Air Force nuclear missile guys, I'm sure you've seen the movies or whatnot where you have 2 guys in a silo. They are 2 keys. If the order comes in for us to launch a nuclear missile, you and I are 25 feet away from each other. We both have a key. We have to authenticate. We have to turn the key at the same time. There's no way, unless you're Plastic Man, you can go from one side to the other, right? And turn the keys. So there's trust but verify and authenticate. Well, Vicki was actually doing all of those things by herself. She was running the budget. She was certifying. There was very, very little oversight and engagement there, as Kiki attested to, where she basically said, I was not allowed to tell you guys this until, the city manager was removed.
Yeah, and there was another lady too. I don't want to get the name wrong, but there was a second lady who also said the same thing.
Well, Kiki was the big one because she's the director of finance. Yeah. So she's literally the bean counter. But so what I would like, and Commissioner Warwick has been a real big proponent of this. They're actually discussing this tonight, actually in the Lynn Haven City Charter Commission. But I am going to push very hard for a separate direct report to the commission. So not only the city manager reports directly to the commission, but also the city clerk reports to the commission. Anytime a certain check needs to be cut over a certain threshold, whether it's $2,500, $3,000 or whatever, both the city manager and the city clerk have to sign off on it, right? One cannot do hardly anything without the other. It's authentication. When we were in the military, if we had orders, guess what? They still had to be verified by finance, and they had to certify the funds were there before we could do anything, right? Even if they had nothing else to do with our unit, our travel, they still had to certify the funds. There was an authentication step. Well, we need to do that here. I also really want to get the state level audit agency to come in and look at our books, a hard look at our books, and go back 4 years. What can we do? What can we look at? Were there particular issues that need to be identified and resolved and worked? Also, like we talked about before, current manpower, allocations, payroll. Are we right-sized? how can we write better, right? We've also talked about the collaboration approach for the city council. One other real quick thing I really want to tackle hard. Actually, there's three more things. One, I detest the non-ad valorem tax for stormwater that we have here in Lynn Haven. Last year, it was $174 for me. This year, it was double that. It was $350. It went up, literally doubled in a year.
It may not sound like a lot to some people, but it's, from what I understand, the highest out of, there are 412 cities in Florida. Lynn Haven is like at the top of the heap on these kind of charges.
Yeah, it was, I can't speak to that yet. I'll need to do my due diligence research there, but I can tell you that it doubled, and I went, what in the heck is going on here? And a non-ad valorem tax, with an ad valorem tax, it's actually based on your property value, right? Non-ad valorem, they came up with this 4-tier approach that they were going to classify. And there's a lot of growing pains. For example, if you have a vacant lot, you'll pay more than if you have a house with a pool and a patio and all of this non-permeable land. It's kind of a weird thing. But then, like, I have a third of an acre lot, a corner lot. And guess what? Mine doubled. So I'm like, what in the world is going on here? And I have very little, there's no website that I can go to where I can see how they're spending this money currently, right? And if it's a non-ad valorem, if it's an ad valorem, then your disabled veterans, your elderly that may have some type of, or survivors of first responders that died in the line of duty, right? They're widows and children that are exempt from paying normal, property taxes. Those folks would get a break if it was ad valorem. Mm-hmm. Non-ad valorem, all of your nonprofits, all of your churches, all of your disabled veterans, your elderly, all of them are paying into this as well. Mm-hmm. So I really want to get that relooked at. I'm not a fan. If you go back one more time. Yep. Also, school traffic. So we have 8 schools in Lynn Haven, counting Haney, which does GED programs. That's how you get the 8. We have some really god-awful traffic problems every day. We have parents and grandparents that line up an hour and a half before school gets out to pick up Johnny and Janie, right? And it's gotten way worse since Michael. Before then, people would actually be bussed in. You might have 20, 30% trucked in or vehicled in. Now it's like 90%. It is absolutely awful. I want to take a look at all 8 schools. I want to get together a working group with some traffic management folks, with some parents and grandparents, with some teachers and school administrators. And I actually want us to go through systematically one by one and figure out what can we do better to improve traffic flow in each of those schools one at a time. I want to start with Bayhaven because it has been an absolute nightmare, and it impacts not only Bayhaven Charter Academy, but Mosley High School as well. So we'll tackle that one right out of the gate, but I want to go systematically through all 8 schools and see what we can do. And lastly, this reclaimed water deal. So we have 2 different sprinkler systems in the city of Lynn Haven, and you can take it off this if you like. So we have half of our city is on what we call a reclaimed water, where they basically recycle water. They minimally treat it. It's not potable water, so you can't drink it, but it's good enough for your sprinklers. But they don't have the infrastructure for it. And they keep putting on these new subdivisions onto it without the capacity. So it's gone from about a 75% capacity a few years ago down to about a 55% capacity now. And in the heat of the summer, when it's 110 degrees outside and everybody's trying to keep their grass from dying, right, their flowers and all that, they run out of the water and they have to ration it to 2 days a week. And when you stop and start these pressurized systems, when you turn them back on and it pressurizes back up, it sucks in dirt, debris, it clogs the lines. It's just a maintenance nightmare. The other side of town actually has freshwater wells. So they have fresh water all the time. They don't have to worry about, running out of water. The only problem is the irrigation water, it costs us about $25 a month. As long as there's water there, you can run it all day long, all night long, waterlog your lawn if you want. And you're still paying $25 a month. For the freshwater, they actually have meters on those. So it's kind of like normal water you take into your house. So if you run your water all the time there, you're going to have quite a water bill, right? Mm-hmm. You actually pay for what you use. But they don't have the maintenance issues that we have on the reclaimed water. They don't have the dependability issues. So we really need to figure that out. I've talked to Chris Lightfoot about it and Bobby Baker, and basically it's, well, we are getting by on like MacGyver, like duct tape, bubble gum, and coat hangers. They're making it work.
Right.
But this can't continue, right?
No.
So we either dump in like $10 million to get all these pumps and all this stuff we need infrastructure wise, or we run over to freshwater, which is the easier fix to do, but it's going to be more costly. So we need to have those public conversations. We need to have those debates.
Yeah.
We need to ask the public to come in. Hey, come talk to us. This is what we're looking at. It's an either or situation.
Yeah.
What do y'all want? Right. And let's get an informed decision. That's called governance, right?
Yeah.
That's collective decision making.
So you're going to have, obviously a lot of challenges. I mean, it's just such a shame that there's a Taj Mahal and all the money spent when the priorities were upside down. Dave, I do want to bring this up because I'm sitting here thinking about this. I'm going to show you something. I'm going to show you an email that I got. So I go to the last city commission meeting and I say,
You talking about one last night?
yeah. And I say, y'all are acting like it's not a big deal that confidential DVDs of children disclosing God knows what at the Children's Advocacy Center. There were copies from 2021 in an officer's foreclosed home that were abandoned. That is illegal. It is illegal for a lot of people. There was an investigation, I've seen it, from the Bay County Sheriff's Office that said, oh, it was okay. They were just copies. And he's the records custodian for the police. And then there was another investigation by Lynn Haven, and they came to the same conclusion. And then the 22 ammo rounds, the files and files and files of contractors who bought their permits from Calhoun County, those files were found in the same home, abandoned from 2021. Those were from 2019. But I'm talking not about sensitive stuff. I'm talking about closed out, confidential copies of CPT exams, Children Protective Team exams. I ask the question and I don't get a goddamn answer. And I'm angry about this because I know things. I know things about children who are being hurt. And I know that sometimes these exams go missing. All right. So when I go up there and ask a question that is about confidential custody, and I said Jamie Warwick and Sam Peebles, and those are, I think, I know Sam cares. I know Sam knows about this stuff. And I know Jamie cares, and I know Jamie knows about this stuff. I told Chris Lightfoot that this is beyond unacceptable, and I'm not going to let it go. I'm coming with handcuffs if you guys don't do the right thing. You say, Bernie, you don't have handcuffs. You're lucky. But I want to show you something. And also, the drones that I asked about, well, the city gave them. These are like $1,300 drones. Gave it to the Boys and Girls Club so they can fly them in the gymnasium. You don't let kids fly these expensive drones? First of all, I talked to somebody who's been a municipal attorney for 4 decades. He's been a judge. And he sent me this, and I'll show you his name because I'd love to have you talk to him. And he talks to me about, I'm just showing you the statute, and I won't go over it, but Dave's looking at my message about the statute. And what I'm learning is city property, like $1,300 drones, they cannot just be given away. The commission has to vote to give away city property. And there were maybe tens of thousands of dollars of tools unopened that were also given away. All I'm saying, Dave, and I'm sorry I'm getting fired up about this, but I care so much about this type of thing, and it makes me very angry when you have people who know, contractors who have secret clearances, who cannot be involved in this kind of stuff. People need to address this, and I don't think they know how serious I am about this. And I didn't mean to get this fired up, but When you're the mayor, God willing, and the creek don't rise. When you're the mayor, will you please take these things seriously so my blood pressure can go down and I don't have to be mad at guys who are really nice like Sam Peebles and Jamie Warwick anymore?
Sure. This all goes back to leadership, right? Say what you mean what you say, be a person of integrity and honor. Now, you mentioned Sam, you mentioned Jamie. Those are very honorable people that I trust and I have great respect for. I actually got into this race in part because Jamie Warwick reached out to me. And we'll circle back to that and how I got into that. But I want to answer your question first. So I can't speak to the drones anymore with any more specifics other than,
of course,
was told they were purchased and then they found out they couldn't use them for what they wanted to, I guess for law enforcement or photography or whatever, because they were Russian made or Chinese made or something. So anyway, they were not allowed to connect them to their network. So they were already purchased and it was, what do we do with them now? I would have to go back and follow up with the procurement person to find out, hey, what is the legal process for this?
Just follow the law.
And if you're going to give it, to a school, to a boys and girls club, something, I'm sure that we could have given one or two of those to engineering programs at the different high schools. They could really use those too. They could get out on their football field and fly it around.
They do that at Arnold, by the way.
Well, there you go. So I'm sure I know there are drone teams and competitions out there. Maybe they could use it. Maybe they could. I don't have any of the details there. I know they looked to find a good place to put it, and that's where it ended up. The Boys and Girls Club. I think they said there were 3 of them that last night. All I have heard is what's been reported at the commission meeting, that basically this guy had like 5 vehicle loads of equipment that got brought in. And then the department heads were all called in. Hey, come get what you can use. And what was left, like some tools and different things, they had to find where's the most appropriate place to donate this, because they couldn't use it anymore for whatever reason. But yeah, here's the thing about leadership. So you have 2 different types of leaders. You have constructive leaders that are willing to, they want different thinkers. They want people with different opinions and hard chargers with different skill sets. You don't need 10 people that all think and act the same way, right? You need people. Lincoln did this really well. He actually had a cabinet of rivals, all these people who were his political rivals, but they all love their country, right? They all wanted to do well. Once the election was over and he was president, they got together, and one was a Secretary of War, one was a Secretary of Treasury. They all worked together. So when the ballot box counting is done and you have your folks, you need to work together and try to do the best you can, right? Somebody that wants nothing but platitudes, that's what we call a self-licking ice cream cone, or someone that drinks their own bathwater. Those are the terms they use at the Pentagon for that quite a bit. A real leader will go out of his or her way to go pull people that will push, make them think outside the box, expound their comfort limit, right? Hey, think outside the box, encourage other, legal things, obviously, but hey, we can do better. We've got to do better, right? Always pushing to do better and more effective. You need teams like that. If everybody's just plain and boring, you're kind of the Maytag repair people.
I'll give you an example. So at the same meeting last night, one of the commissioners, Judy Tinder, said, I got different answers. I don't know if it was live 22 ammo or if it was spent 22 ammo. I don't know this, that, or the other. There is an investigative report from the county and from the city. The commissioner has been asking for this and doesn't have it. I guess what I'm saying, Dave, is would a good leader, would a good chairman of that board, a mayor, if a commissioner is talking about something of this magnitude that could be illegal on a lot of fronts, and she can't get straight answers. I mean, it seems to me a good chairman, a good mayor would say, what? Let's at least put this on an item for discussion. Let's give ourselves a couple of weeks. Let's all dig deep. We don't have to go into it right now. But nobody does anything about it, and the issue is not going away.
Right. Well, there's 2 schools of thought here, Bernie. First, you can't operate by crisis management constantly, right? So every week, these commissioners get stuff flown at them. Like last night, it was the flock cameras, right?
Yeah.
This person randomly showed up at Judy Tinder's restaurant and dumped off this evidence with her, right? And then all of a sudden, Commissioner Tinder had this, and now she's got to figure out what to do with it, right? And to her credit, she ran it up the flagpole. She got the right people involved. But if, I love Judy Tender to death. I have great respect for her. I really, really look forward to working with her if the citizens and voters of Lynn Haven give me the opportunity to do so. And if it's important to Judy, or it's important to Sam or Pat or Jamie, it's going to be important to me, right? And we need to address that. When mistakes happen, honest, bona fide mistakes, when a screw up happens, we need to own it. We need to say, this is what happened.
There you go.
This person was in the middle of a divorce. The stuff was in a box that didn't get packed up as it should have been. Whatever the cases are, right? I don't know the details here.
Sure.
But, my dad used to always say that if you had the truth could lay open and naked for the world to see, you always have to cover up a lie. So if you just come clean, black and white, sincerity and honesty, hey, this is what happened. This is where the custody chain broke. This will be accounted for. This will be dealt with, right? And we make sure that those records are secure. They're disposed of however properly, copies or originals, whatever.
I asked where are they now? Because according to those reports, and I encourage you to read them, they gave them back to Officer McAlendon. The CPT DVDs, the copies, they don't even know how many are made. I don't want to, I know you don't have all the details, and I'm not trying to get a direct answer because it's not appropriate right now. There's a lot of research to do, but all I'm asking for is accountability, transparency. And if a citizen, whether they like you or not, asks a question and they've already done an investigation and they're legitimate questions and they're big, I wouldn't be doing this anymore. Let me tell you something. I started doing this in 2016. That's when Facebook Live started. I went to the Panama City Beach City Council meetings. Mayor Mike Thomas's first meeting. He came from the commission to there. If Mayor Mike Thomas had answered my questions the first time I went there, instead of saying we don't answer questions, I never would have gone back. I wouldn't be doing this. I'd probably be the advisor at the city that you were talking about. I wouldn't be doing this anymore. The best thing to do is answer the question. That's all I'm saying.
So Mike Thomas is responsible for
Yes,
Bernie.
this is the Mike. People used to say if Mike Thomas weren't around, you wouldn't have a show. And I'd say, thank God for Mike.
Fair. What I can tell you on that is, and again, we're both former military officers. There's a chain of command.
Yeah.
We have a police chief. We have right now we have an acting police chief, the deputy police chief. His name's Steve Infinger. Good straight shooting guy, as best I can tell. I've chatted with him a couple of times. Very professional, very friendly, very engaging. Knows his stuff. I've heard him speak about the cameras and different policies with a lot of crystal clear clarity. He's very direct. He's very factual. He's very detailed. What I would do is I would go to him and say, okay, chief, I want this addressed and I want to be followed up. I want to know exactly where these files are. How are you accounting for this? How is the offending police officer? What was the policy? What was broken? How has this been dealt with? Yeah. And then in regards to what we can say, because, punishment and things like that, you can say, sure, this person has been disciplined, but what, you can't necessarily say, but the police officer, was counseled, whatever. And then it has been dealt with. This will not happen again. And here are the additional measures we've put in place to ensure this doesn't happen again, right? At that point, the horse is already out of the barn. That ship has sailed, right? The toothpaste is out of the tube. You're not going to be able to put it back effectively for that particular instance. But what you can do is do an honest, good faith effort to make sure that doesn't happen again, right?
And to me, the big picture is these are 5 child protective team exams of 5 different kids disclosing to people, God knows what. And these are copies that are made. How, and we don't know what their names are. I don't know what their names are. I'm going to find out, damn it. I'm going to find out. But if I don't want to say if you're a child, but because we should feel this way about all children. A family's child discloses stuff and it's floating effing around on DVDs. And I can't get Sam Peoples to give an answer or Jamie Warwick to give an answer. Pat's over there at the restaurant. He making everybody happy with the food. And I love you, Pat. But damn it, Pat, you got to answer the question. That's all I'm saying. Is the bigger picture, Dave, is there are families and kids who have had their privacy violated. I don't even want to hammer Officer McAlendon. That's not my issue. I don't even think about him. But I do think about the kids, and I feel like everybody wants to talk about it and give awards to each other at these meetings sometimes. But I pray, and I believe you will do a good job. And it doesn't mean we have to agree. We can disagree on policy, but I bet we never disagree on principle. I bet. And we can disagree on policy all day long, and you'll probably be right. But I'm just saying there's a bigger issue here I wish people would think about.
Core values are core values. You know, we as a society seem to have lost the ability to respectfully disagree.
Yeah, exactly.
We are getting so tribal in our politics. And you talked about this in one of your shows here recently, where everybody's all 24/7 into politics now. You and I were the rare political science junkies back in the 90s. We were the odd ducks back then.
We both have a political science degree, huh?
Bachelor's.
All right, baby.
Yep. I got mine University of South Carolina, the original USC, 1801.
What's crazy is I got mine from Cal State Fullerton. But what year did you get your bachelor's?
98, May of 98.
Okay, I got mine in 2000, so you're ahead of me still.
Well, just a little bit, but you know, it's all good. So we can agree to disagree.
Yeah.
You know, you and I can, you know, they used to say there's no Republican and Democratic way to pave a road, right? Well, there kind of is, there kind of isn't. But, you know, when it comes to public health, when it comes to beautifying parks, and when it comes to things like that, even if you and I have different plans, we have different opinions and desires, we can come together and work, you know. And in the Pentagon, they always called it sausage making, right? Well, and they always would say the process is kind of ugly, but you end up with a good result. Well, not necessarily, but if you do a bona fide, good faith effort, if citizens come in and they watch the process, if they hear us going round and round about how I want LED lighting and you want spotlighting, you know, all this, and we go back and forth and we look at the cost of both and what the life wear cycle will be and the maintenance, how often we have to replace the bulbs and what the cost will be, you know, all the basic stuff you need to do, right? And then we decide we're going with the LEDs. At the end of that, even if they wanted the spotlights like you, they can go, well, you know, it's going to cost a third as much to go with LEDs as it would the ultra bright spotlights, right? And they're going to last 5 years versus 6 months,
Right.
You know, and they can walk away with a sense that what we did was fair.
Yeah.
And even if their tax dollars are going to go pay for this park lighting and it's not the kind they wanted, it's not something they're going to go fall on a hill and die.
At
over,
least
right?
both sides felt heard.
And you work together. And, you know, you lost this round. Well, maybe the next time we're working on a sewer thing or on new park benches, you know, there's always things that you can do and collaborate.
I believe that you will. I like what I'm hearing. And I believe that you're going to really lift, that you and the rest of them are going to lift the morale because people are going to feel valued. They're going to feel like they are a reason why. People want to be a reason why.
So one thing I can share with you, and actually I can connect you with some of my old troops. My first two commands were out in Hawaii. Very different units for very different reasons. But we had two very challenged units. My first unit that I walked into, the last leader of it had been fired and removed for sexual harassment and attempted sexual assault. You want to talk about a big smoking hole you walk into. And let's just say that this leader, he had really kind of run the unit in the ground, morale-wise, trust-wise, operationally. The unit was in bad shape. And so I came in as this funny talking Southerner, right? I come in and I golden rule people. I literally let them be heard. I literally did my best to give them the shoulder to cry on, the Kleenex. And once they got to vent, it's like, all right, I need you to step up. How can we fix this situation? And then how can I get you back in the game? I need you engaged, right? And then with my second unit, they took two units and they crammed them together across two different Hawaiian islands without an inter-island airlift capability. So, and I focused on the same thing. We focused on all the fundamentals: training, personnel, recognition, operational readiness. And we got two units crammed together into an entirely new unit. We all had to retrain. We got operationally ready and deployed in 6 months. It was supposed to take 2 years for us to get to that. We did it in 6 months. It wasn't because I was the fuzziest, wuzziest leader there ever was, but because I had an amazing team around me. And we all worked really hard together. We all got synchronized, rowing in the rowboat together, right? Focused on strategy, purpose, and mission, milestone, timelines, and goalposts. We drove forward and we made good things happen, right? We can do that in Lynn Haven.
Yes.
There are a lot of things that we can fix given the opportunity. we just need a chance to say, basically, put me in, coach.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm telling
I like it.
the voters of Lynn Haven. Put me in, coach. Give me a chance. I won't let you down. I'll always shoot straight with you. And let me put these 2 doctorate degrees to good use for you. And, you know, let's literally get our ship righted here.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, probably a good time to call it. And of course, you're welcome anytime, as is anybody over there. And just as a recap, there is a court decision. Mayor Nelson has sued the recall committee, and there will be a decision whether or not the recall will be thrown out. And it's based on, there's 1 ground listed out of 7, and it's malfeasance. The recall committee gave 3 reasons to support the malfeasance ground. And if those 3 reasons would indeed be malfeasance, not whether he did it or not, that's up to the voters, but whether those would be examples of malfeasance, it will go forward. It will go to January 20th, and then the voters will decide, keep Mayor Nelson or recall Mayor Nelson. If more than 50% say recall Mayor Nelson, that's it. There are no more candidates. Dr. Lowery will be the mayor to finish that term a couple of years. And so that's where we're at. I really appreciate you being here. I'll let you have a final say, and
Sure.
I'll thank folks and get out of here.
No, thanks, Bernie. I appreciate the hospitality very
Thank
much.
you.
I appreciate what you and Gap Parker and Jody Moore with the Beacon do, Ryan Scray, Lynn Haven Neighbors. There's a lot of good people out there. You know, new social media. I love you guys and gals because you're getting the information out. You may not always see the things the same as some of the other reporters, but
Absolutely.
you know, you put your spin on it, but you're shooting straight, you're shooting from the heart, and you're trying to share information.
All of our vantage points matter.
Our mainstream media, case in point, just tonight. Channel 13 did a really good job tonight. Heather Basley's a very impressive young lady, straight shooter, just the facts. She's kind of like a female Clark Kent, right?
Way to go.
And I really think a lot of her. Channel 7, I mean, they reported tonight that Dan Lowery had qualified, not a doctor, not anything else. This is the same.
Not even Dave?
Yeah, not even Dave.
Just
Dan Lowery.
Okay.
And the last time I was just a footnote, they gave Mayor Nelson like an 8-paragraph soapbox where the guy came in and basically let him say anything and everything he wanted to say as long as he said it. And then I was like a footnote. They couldn't even spell my name right. They called him Dr. Mayor, Rev, or Pastor. Didn't even mention, you know, Doctor or Colonel, Lieutenant Colonel or anything for me. It was just Dave Lowery. Never even contacted me. Never contacted the recall committee. Got one sentence quote from Judy Tender, or maybe 2 sentences. I mean, it was kind of a joke. It was like, really, you know, they're not even trying to be unbiased or present both sides anymore. It's just literally they're broadcasting what they want to broadcast.
Well, the good news is very few people are watching.
Well, so Dan Lowery, if somebody's going, who's Dan? I already sent him a note and said, really? You can't even get my name right off the website? But it is what it is. So, you know, you new media folks, y'all are getting the word out there. This recall happened in almost a complete media blackout.
Yeah.
And as we talked about, you were there when I talked about this a few weeks ago, when we presented the second round petitions. There were almost 2,500 of them. Keep in mind, Mayor Nelson's high watermark voting was 1,773 in April of 2023. So we had 716 more petitions. Wow. That's John and Jane Hancock's versus anonymous ballots. And we submitted those, right? Barely even a blip.
It's the biggest recall in Bay County history.
And it was a lot of work, a lot of people. A lot of people were just fed up. And, you know, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not going to try to speak for that. But I will say that as a retired military guy, strategically, it makes no sense he's trying to fight now, you know, after the horse is out of the gate and the ship sailed. If he wanted to fight this, the time to have fought this would have been after the first round of petitions were certified, before the second round started. If not then, when the second round was certified, he had a 5-day, what they call cooling off period, which is provided for in state law, which ended up being 9 days because he got the 2-day Thanksgiving holiday and a weekend. So he ended up 5 business days, 9 calendar days. And at the end of that, he came out and he said, well, I'm not going to resign. Let's go. Let's bring it. And then the next day he's trying to turn it off. So with the lawsuit, those would have been the 2 times that would have made sense to do this. But when you wait until after the chief judge of the district certifies it, they set an election date, everything's moving forward. You've known about this for 6+ months, and now you want to fight it after 4,000 plus petitions have been signed and certified. You know, that's kind of a day late and a dollar short. So we'll see where it goes. I would be, again, I'm not a lawyer, don't profess to be, but you know, our judges are locally elected folks. They're aware of the values of Bay County, of transparency and good citizenship.
I hope they're aware of the law.
So, you know, I you know, at this point, it's hard for me to envision a judge saying, no, you know, these 4,000 people, you got 1,700 votes or 1,773 votes 3 years ago. You know, those are good, but these other 4,000, they don't count. We're just going to turn this off and let you finish out your last 15 months. I really don't see that happening. Just like in Mexico Beach, the mayor then, Mayor Miller, she tried her best to get the judge or the courts to step in. They refused. They let the process play out. The people got the final vote. And then they closed out her lawsuit the day after and said, well, you just lost. Have a nice life, Mayor. And that was that.
Yeah. And I disagreed a lot with that, but I'll say this, and I've made that argument and all of that, and I won't rehash it, but I will say that the 14th Judicial Circuit, it's not considered precedent because that only happens at an appeal, and it was not appealed. They didn't accept the appeal. So there's not case law, but the 14th Judicial Circuit has spoken on the issue. And it would be interesting if one judge disagreed with the last judge, Goodman, and Judge Patterson, the chief judge who set the date. He looked at everything and immediately set the date. If he said those 3 examples don't equal malfeasance, if in Chief Judge Patterson's mind, he wouldn't have set the date. But he almost just throughout the process, just throughout doing it, he almost has made his statement.
Well, and the lawyer or the judges are there to ensure that this Florida state statutes are followed,
Exactly.
right? Chairman James Finch of the Recall Committee, he is no dummy. I mean, he literally had lawyers from the word go with this.
The same one, by the way, who won with against Mayor Miller.
Nina Ward is one of the most impressive public servants we have.
True.
I mean, I have literally to her face called her and her team the Chick-fil-A of Bay County, governance.
It's true.
They are amazing. They are very responsive. They couldn't be more helpful if they tried. Yeah. She also had her advising county lawyers involved as well, right? So from the word jump or the jump ball, there have been multiple lawyers involved. They very much basically wove this together in accordance with the statute. So to now come back after the entire 6-month process is done, 2 certification phases, and the chief judge saying, okay, here's the date. Now you want to roll the tape back and scream foul. It's kind of interesting. Again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm not a judge. We have legal professionals to decide that, but I would be very surprised if they don't say, let the people decide, and the citizens of Lynn Haven get the final vote at the end.
Yep. On January 20th. Well, Dave, thank you so much. Let me thank, of course, the Unknown Patriot for your support, and all of you who throw a tip in the tip jar at patreon.com/Bernie Thompson, as little as $5 a month, the best money you can spend on the internet. And you know this. It's easy, it's anonymous, and you can quit at any time. Here's a freebie. Takes 20 seconds. Every week I send all the shows, the important Facebook posts. If you know somebody who doesn't have Facebook and you want them to see the shows, get a free subscription, bernie.substack.com. I email them once a week, and you can forward that along. And again, I should probably do this. I don't do it enough. I know a lot of you have been trying to reach me, and the best surefire way to get my full attention is to book a call with me. You can do it for 30 minutes or for an hour, and that's where you can do it. Calendly.com/Bernie Thompson. They have been fantastic. You can talk with me about anything you want. If you have a tip, if you've got a situation, if you want to learn about podcasting equipment or going out in the woods equipment, whatever it is, Calendly.com/Bernie Thompson. That's where to do it. All right. I think that's about it. Dave, I usually don't work this hard and this long for anybody except for lieutenant colonels.
Well, I appreciate it, brother.
All right. Thank you so much. And I will see you soon.
Thank you.